Hey everybody, I'm Brent Marcello, and welcome to the College Football Insiders. I am joined today by Shahan Jayaraja and Chris Hummer, and our man Matt Zenitz will be dropping Z-bombs hopefully later on the show. He's currently taking phone calls and working 79 beats because he covers the NFL, college football as well, and I heard also this upcoming space race. Gentlemen, this
My
could be
mind's
a
on the billionaire.
yeah. Yeah. Um What an eventful week this could be, guys. And we're going to get right into it. This might end up being Billy Napier's farewell tour in the swamp, waving to everybody. In addition to some other coaches, maybe in some must-win situations that are going to define the back half of the schedule for them, that might end up putting them on hot seats as well. So we're going to start off the show with a bit of a piece of reporting from all of us this week, where we were discussing all these buyouts, right, of all these coaches. James Franklin getting paid $49 million to go walk off into the sunset and maybe go coach somewhere else, or maybe just sit on the beach for the rest of his life if he wants to. Meanwhile, we've got a lot of other jobs that are expected to open. Our Chris Hummer and Richard Johnson did some reporting on that, talking to industry sources, discussing that they expect maybe as many as 40 plus head coaching jobs to open up in the FBS, which, by the way, would be a record. We've had a historic turn the last 2 years combined, but that would be even bigger. And I did a story on the buyout balloon we have seen in college football, just these amazing, incredible deals, contracts where they're not only getting guaranteed money, but also big time buyouts for them and their assistant coaches that are putting athletic departments in a very precarious situation because they're already pinching pennies now with the new revenue sharing era and with NIL. So a lot of money being spent in college sports and a lot of money trying to be earned through new revenue streams that haven't quite come to fruition yet. So everybody's wondering what's going to happen. I did a little calculations, guys. These are completely unofficial, right? So we've had 7 head coaching changes since the start of the season, and their buyouts all combined total $92.933 million. So we're almost to $100 million, and we're just now hitting the mid-October point. And of course, James Franklin leads the way at $49 million. Number 2 is Mike Gundy, who, remember way back when he was fired, seems like a year ago now, at Oklahoma State with $15 million. Gentlemen, I want to get to you, Chris, and this reporting you guys did with the hot seat chatter. So many other names, potentially some more big names we're going to see talking more about whether schools are going to be willing to pay their buyouts, because as we see, more common the case in these power conference schools, their contracts are guaranteed 75, 85%, and some of them fully guaranteed for 100%. And that is a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Shahan had a salient point last week when he brought up the fact that we were talking about this before James Franklin got fired, but he said that but other than Jimbo Fisher, who was, I think, 60 plus million, like somewhere around
70
there.
plus, I believe. He was at like 72 or something like that.
Yeah, the second biggest buyout ever was like $23 million. And we have multiple situations this year that could very well exceed that if changes do happen. And if you're talking about there's like 4 Power 4 jobs that are under the spotlight moving forward the rest of the year. 2 are very, very hot. So that's Florida and Wisconsin. And Brandon, we're discussing these more in depth later, right? We're just talking about buyouts now.
Yes.
The buyouts, particularly for them, are interesting. So Billy Napier, if he got fired, would be owed about $21 million. But buyouts work differently. In Billy Napier's case, like, he's owed $21 million, but half of that is due within 30 days. So he is owed essentially $11 million lump sum within 30 days. Whereas at Wisconsin, where Luke Fickell would be owed around $25 million, that money is not owed up front. They can spread that around to 2032 on a month-by-month basis. And then, for example, a place like Kentucky, Mark Stoops, I believe, let me find the exact language, but I believe Mark Stoops is owed $38 million as a lump sum within 60 days, the entire thing. So
crazy.
Mark Stoops has got a great deal, I'll tell you that. And that's how different these contracts can be. And it can really affect the calculation and the calculus for these programs. It's a big reason why, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, like Florida State might not come up in despite of a lot of unhappy people, because Mike Norvell is owed a ton of money for a program that doesn't have it just lying around. So buyouts affect these
I'll
discussions.
say this about Florida State. I was talking to some people down there. They wouldn't be shocked if they moved on from Mike Norvell, even with that large buyout right now at the end of the season. They're going to wait, I believe, till the end of the year to really judge things, because if it goes really south, then you probably will not be in a position where you don't really have a choice, and you got to make some very, very difficult decisions that is already going to affect a department that was already scrounging to find money. That's why they're trying to get more money out of the ACC and that deal they worked out there with the unequal revenue distribution starting up this year. But I was told this week that, like, don't completely eliminate that possibility of Mike Norvell being on the hot seat and then maybe being forced to make a change at the end of the year if this thing continues to go south. Having said all that, this Florida State team is obviously better than it was last year. Maybe the worst thing that could have happened was beating Alabama to start the year and setting up these expectations of their back. But you shouldn't be losing at home to Pitt. And you lose some more games like that, there's very much enough heat there that could end up being a situation tomorrow.
Well, this is, and I'm curious if you guys can help give some clarity to both me and the listener, hopefully. So, for example, right, we're thinking of James Franklin's buyout, right, where it's $50 million, but it apparently can be spread over the next 8 years or whatever it is. So, and then there's reportedly offset language, right? So if he takes a new job, then that'll be offset. So I'm curious, $50 million is 8 years. I can't remember exactly what it is. If, so that would be 6 point, whatever, 6 point something per year. If he takes a job making 7, does that mean that they don't have to pay a buyout? Like, how exactly does that work in practice with a guy in James Franklin, who I don't think it's really in question is going to take immediately another high profile job?
Yeah, that puts him in a position where it pretty much just leaves his new school on the hook, because whatever that contract is, they're going to have some type of buyout situation in there too, where whenever his career ends there and everybody's career ends, his career ends there, he'll have a buyout of some sort, and Penn State might be off the hook. That's what's so fascinating about all this, is that, as you reported, Chris, James Franklin's going to be an in-demand coach here in this cycle. There are going to be several schools that are going to at least consider him. And as they should. And as a result, he's probably going to end up completely offsetting what Penn State was going to owe him anyway. So we're sitting here going, oh my God, Penn State spent all this money, and all of a sudden they might actually be getting a pretty good bargain, all things considered.
We'll see. Like, there's no guarantee James Franklin chooses to take a job this cycle. And like, he could go get a job on ESPN, I'm sure, paying him $250,000 a year, and then Penn State still has to pay him $10 million this year. But you're right. Like, with offset language, more than likely, Penn State's not going to have to eat the entirety of that lump sum like that we're talking about, with that giant number. So that is an interesting element of these contracts.
Yeah, with the way that the contract is written, I mean, is there per se, like, is there a number that Penn State is guaranteed to have to pay? Like, if he immediately took a job that essentially offsets the future year's earnings, like, is there a number that they have to hit, or is there like a possibility that they could pay almost nothing?
Well, let me tell you about Pennsylvania FOIA laws. They are not great.
Yes.
So a lot of the conversation about James Franklin's contract is, I don't want to say speculation, because like, I think we all talk to people who have seen the contract, but it's not like any media member citing a number there is looking at the exact language, because Pennsylvania's FOIA laws are, we don't need to go into a discussion about that. Yeah, they're literally insane. But so it's hard to say, like, that's not good information giving, but like, I'm not lying to the audience. I don't know. And I don't think most people in the media do know, because nobody's really seen the contract because of how the FOIA laws work.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
But something will be offset. Like, I feel very comfortable.
We just need to put some money, and we need to put Nicolas Cage on retainer so he can steal the Declaration of Independence and some of these contracts that are hidden behind open records laws.
And I'll tell you what as well, obviously we're not talking about him right this second. This is why the Jimbo contract is one of the most insane documents that's ever been signed by anybody ever. That contract was fully guaranteed and had zero mitigation language. So he was guaranteed to get all $95 million no matter what happens. And actually, if he gets fired and gets another job, it doesn't offset. He just has the ability to make more money on top of that. So actually, I mean, again, Jimbo Fisher's won at life in a lot of ways the past couple of years, but this is crazy.
Producer Aaron does make a good point here in the chat off to the side. Like, The difference between Fisher's deal and Franklin's deal is there's a duty to mitigate clause in James Franklin's deal, which means he has to go find a job. Like, he is obligated to go in good faith, find a job. What good faith looks like, who knows? You'd have to go to court and settle that if they want to debate it.
And this was a situation that Brett Bielema found himself in a couple years ago, right? With Arkansas, I believe, where he took a very low-paying job with the New England Patriots because he was already taken care of. And Arkansas, I believe, sued him over it and said, well, that's not really mitigating and realistically what we've done. Now, again, I think that
Arkansas withheld that money from him, and then Bielema sued Arkansas, saying, "No, I deserve this money," and then they end up settling. Yeah,
somebody sues somebody all the time. But to close that, I mean, I think realistically, again, the openings this year are going to be too good, in my opinion, for James Franklin to not get a very good job. Now, I think I'm trying to think who it was. There was a coach. Oh, it was Charlie Strong at Texas a couple of years ago. Took a very below market contract at South Florida because ultimately it didn't matter that much. I could see, for example, James Franklin taking hey, I'm going to get paid $4 million a year to be the coach at Arkansas, put all that money into NIL and rev share and staffing. Like, I could absolutely see something like that happen.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be coaching in 2026.
Yeah, there's been several situations like that, even among assistant coaches. I can remember getting fired at a big school, a position coach. In fact, I can remember, I'm not going to name names because I don't remember the exact amount, but their duty to offset, to mitigate, they took another job. They were getting paid $250. I kid you not.
Hell yeah.
Per month, per the season?
Per year.
Oh.
Wow. Making journalism wages out here.
Heck of a way to mitigate, huh? Wow. I love this stuff. No, I don't. It's incredible. Just the way agents have just wrestled these athletic directors down to the ground.
Well, Brandon, I will say, I thought there was a quote in your story that stood out to me. It was from a Big Ten athletics director who said, I've thought for years that coaches' contracts would level out, and I've been dead wrong. It's because administrators and boosters can't get out of their own way and create leverage in these situations. Like, everybody always feels like they have to one up each other, and we're not going to on this podcast, but there's a very interesting element to one or two large agencies controlling the majority of head coaches and getting to dictate the market.
That's crazy.
That's the other thing. Talking these athletic directors, like, every single one of them were telling, and of course they want to be anonymous because they're like, I don't want to say all this out loud, but they're like, we're screwed. Like, we put ourselves in this position because, one, a lot of ADs are short-sighted because they're trying to protect their own job. So if there's a hot candidate out there and that's who your board of trustees, your president, and your fan base really wants, you're going to pretty much do anything you want to go get them, and then you'll do what they want to sign them to a deal. And so these ADs answers to the presidents answer to the board, and a lot of those board members, as we know, are boosters themselves in the athletics department. Some of them former athletes themselves that aren't dealing with the day-to-day. And as one AD told me, he's like, you're hiring for the press conference. So everybody that was on the board, the president, can show up and puff out their chests, and it's a great day. But the day you fire them, it's all on the AD. It's not the board's fault. Well, we didn't really know this was going to happen. The president's fault. No, it comes down the AD's feet at the end.
And I'll close, and then we should probably move on this. The athletic director who hired Jimbo Fisher to Texas A&M, Scott Woodward, used that to get a raise and a job at LSU, where he's from. The athletic director who replaced him, who handed out one of the worst contracts in the history of college football, not fully because of him, frankly, the board had a big part of that.
Yeah, I actually had one AD bring that up to me and goes, Ross Bjork gets way too much flack for that. That was not him.
He was not the guy who came up with $95 million. But point is, he was the guy who organized and signed that contract with Jimbo Fisher. He ended up getting Ohio State. Now they're on to another guy, right? So, ultimately, you gain way more by bragging about getting the guy than you lose by that guy being awful.
You're exactly right. And I'm gonna end it with this. We're gonna go through some big buyouts here, just of some prominent coaches that could end up being on the hot seat here at some point. All right, we mentioned Mike Norvell earlier. His buyout, $58.67 million. Mark Stoops' crazy contract, $38 million, where it all be owed to him within 60 days. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, who could be fired in any moment, really, it seems like. His buyout is $25 million at Wisconsin. And then the name we're all watching this weekend, Billy Napier at Florida, his buyout is at $20 million. All of those, other than one, would end up being what would have been the second highest ranked buyout in history before this year. And yet here we are. We might have a whole new top 10 when this coaching carousel all ends. Also, I want to talk about bad business decisions, the contracts and everything that go along with this. You know, you look further into some of this stuff. There have been some very bad decisions, not just made with coaches, but also just the overreaction around the coaches and also with NIL. And I think Oregon State's been like the perfect example for that. Scott Barnes, the athletics director there, of course, they elevated Trent Bray, who was a position coach there at Oregon State, when Jonathan Smith left his alma mater at Oregon State to go to Michigan State to take over as head coach. So Oregon State already struggling with their money because the Pac-12 was pretty much dissolving at that point. It was only them and Washington State being left behind. So they elevate Trent Bray. Well, that ended up being a complete failure. And Scott Barnes even said this week, I thought he would be one of those guys that would accept the responsibilities of being a CEO type that would grow into that role. And he said he showed no interest in that. He just wanted to be a ball coach. Yikes. Did you not see that coming? Also, Scott Barnes this month signs a deal or an agreement. I shouldn't say it's a contract. They agrees with Blueprint Sports to handle their NIL situation. You can go look up the numbers. They're kind of outrageous at face value, the percentage of numbers that Blueprint Sports itself would keep. And I think, in my opinion, and I think anybody else with any business sense that would look at that would say it was a horrible decision to do so. And if you want any evidence of that, consider this. Blueprint Sports at one point represented 24 NILs, right? Collectives. They represent 3 today. Everybody's dropping Blueprint Sports because of just how bad those deals were. In fact, the most recent one to drop them is right here in my backyard, Arkansas, because it was such a bad situation. I don't think Blueprint Sports is going to be around anymore much longer. But then Oregon State agrees to a deal with them and like makes a big deal about it here in the last couple of weeks. Just some very awkward decisions being made there in the Pacific Northwest. And then, hey, also, what about, we talked about Mike Norvell earlier. How about, I'd say it's an overreaction, but what about Florida State reacting the way they did when Alabama came calling? And they were so assured that like Mike Norvell is our guy. He's the guy who's going to win us a national championship. And you sign him to a huge deal and he immediately goes 2-10 and you're stuck. I mean, that's the thing. It might seem like a good idea at the time, but the money numbers just don't make sense for any coach, to be quite honest, unless it's someone that's winning national championship after national championship and has shown a long streak of doing so. You're taking a chance on anybody in this day and age, unless they show within a 3-year period, they're going to continue to contend. And Mike Norvell had that 1 year and all of a sudden, boom, Florida State's locked into this and could be facing a very rich and expensive decision here near the end of the season, costing nearly $60 million.
I just want to say, Richard and I wrote a little bit about the hot seat stuff, and the Blueprint stuff sports was included in there. So I certainly was aware of that, but I'm reading more about that now. And the split for Blueprint Sports is nuts. It's nuts. It's like more than 50% of the revenue is going to Blueprint instead of the NIL program for the fundraising they're making.
Yeah,
that is insane. Like we talked about a bad contract to sign as an AD for Jimbo Fisher. That is like a fireable offense borderline.
How do you agree to that? How's that pass muster? How does that go through your board? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous where we're at right now. But, to move on to the contract extension piece of things too, right? I think that we've been in an era where the second, not even that a guy is going to leave and take a job, but the second that there's interest in him, we're like slap 3 more years on his contract and double his salary. Like it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And by the way, I'm including for coaches who are good, right? Like coaches who might be okay. But like I remember before the 2024 season, and I harped on this at the time and people frankly got mad at me. Like, why are you extending Brent Venables? Where's he going? Where's he going? Who's coming for Brent Venables in a real way? Nobody at that point. He was coming off a 6 and 7 season. Now, again, a slightly different situation, but even right here in our backyard, Chris, like, I don't know that Steve Sarkisian needed to have another big jump after last season, right? And I think that, again, Sark has done a great job. I think that he's a good coach. I think it makes sense that he's locked in. But, like, you just kind of gave him another contract for no real reason. There's been this reflexiveness that any moment that it seems appropriate that the guy could get more, they're just handing out more. And
that's the other thing. It's like, I think it does come simply down to this. Like, at some point, AD just needs to sit there and go, "Oh, you're thinking about leaving?
Okay, bye.
Well, try it, I guess, and then come back to me if it doesn't work out."
I don't disagree, but like in Texas's case, like last year, I think there was a lot of worry the NFL could be looming for Steve Sarkisian off of back-to-back seasons the way they had it, and you're trying to. I'm not defending the deal. I agree with y'all. Like I would also do the same thing, but this is how the ADs think, right? Like you have Steve Sarkisian, finally the head coach that takes Texas back, like finally puts Texas in a position to win sustainably. And now you're looking over your shoulder because the NFL might be calling. Like the NFL, I know, was at least like talking a little bit around Steve Sarkisian. Like you get worried, you don't want to lose your guy and you lose your leverage.
The thing is though, okay, because for example, right, if the NFL really, really wants a guy and the guy is open to going to the NFL, right? Like, I mean, the NFL could pay 15 plus. Like the NFL can beat the money that you're going to throw to him in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. If he wants to go, then he's going to go, right? Like, yeah. And so I think that ultimately this idea of fear is such a big part of the deal. And even if you want to talk about Texas, like I think Sark again has done a great job. There's a lot of stuff that athletic department has done incredibly well. That's a huge part of Steve Sarkisian being as good as he's been over the past couple of years. Like at some point too, and this really isn't a Sark conversation. I'm sorry that it's become one, but like I think that at some point too, some of these athletic departments have to sit back and think, maybe we're underselling ourselves. Maybe Oklahoma's a good job. Maybe Florida State's a good job. Maybe USC's a good, like, we don't need to keep doing this reflexively.
Yeah, it's
and maybe if after 5 years a guy decides to leave, you got to have some level of faith that you just go hire somebody else good.
Exactly. Notre Dame got rid of Charlie Weiss, and then and then Brian Kelly didn't get. Here's the other thing. I was talking to some AD. Sorry, we're going at length on this, but I had someone telling me about the Brian Kelly situation in Notre Dame that Jack Shorebrook, the AD there at the time, just was like, "I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to give you this, Brian Kelly. That's too bad." And in the end, it forced Brian Kelly out. And guess what? Notre Dame was just damn fine. Marcus Freeman comes in, and they get to the freaking national championship game. Meanwhile, Brian Kelly is just repeating what he did at Notre Dame, just coming so close and frustratingly close. If you are a big-time program, you're going to be fine. If you have the resources around you, you're going to be fine.
I agree with y'all generally. Like I really do. And I'm not trying to extend this conversation, but think about what happened to Texas after Mac Brown for a decade. Like you're not always fine. That's the fear. That's the stick that agents are wielding. They're wielding that stick. Like you
I think we lost Chris
time, and that's where these go.
I think it's just, listen, the CFB is moving more and more toward NFL light anyway. And we've all know this and whatever, and you can argue how much of it is or whatever, but because of NIL, because of the richest schools getting the richest rosters are usually the best in position to compete. At some point we need to realize you don't need to go hire some coach that's different or is so unique that he costs a lot of money and he might be stolen away. At some point we need to realize that the coaching maybe is not as important as it was 5 years ago in college football. The market needs to correct itself. Who's going to do it? All the ADs are like sitting around
not
waiting.
Me.
You do it. But I don't know. My board of regents is telling me I shouldn't. It's all silly out there. Okay. We went at length on that, on the buyout bubble and all these contracts. Check out those stories at cbssports.com. A couple of there. When we come back, we're going to get into the pressure index. Big time games coming up this week that could affect the tenures of some coaches out there, as well as some playoff berths. We'll be right back.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars. What a difference she has made.
The question is, can you handle it? Can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to the College Football Insider. Sorry, I had my phone in my hand looking at all the texts I missed. And
This is hilarious timing. And apparently Kurt Signetti, they just announced an 8-year contract extension that'll pay him $11.6 million a year. Like, the second that this happens. Now, actually, I think that one probably makes a little bit of sense. But just another example. Interest comes calling, AD start paying.
Yes, but also I think it's another sign that Indiana is like so dang prepared for any people try to come take their coach. They're just not going to let him go. And as he said last year, why would I go anywhere? I'm building the next college football superpower. All right, pressure index time, guys. And we've got Matt Zenitz joining us now, fresh off the phone. He might be on the phone still. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he might have an implant in his head where he can take calls without us ever knowing. Let's start off in Gainesville, Florida, where we might be bidding farewell to the one and only Billy Napier after this weekend. Reports, rumors out there that the Florida coach, win or lose, could very well be saying aloha, hi or bye, after that game against the Bulldogs. Just a quick setup here. As you guys know, Billy Napier, 21-23 there at Florida in his career. Oh my gosh. They're trying to avoid 5 losses in the first 7 games for the first time since 1979. Their quarterback, DJ Lagway, has thrown 7 interceptions, which is the most in the SEC. And they face a Mississippi State team that has lost 14 straight SEC games, which is the longest in-conference losing streak in all of the FBS. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you can see the winning percentage for Billy Napier. It's the 4th worst in Florida history with a minimum of 20 games coached. And Florida this year against the FBS, 1-4 and only averaging 15.8 points per game. Now, what are we hearing out there about one Billy Napier?
Well, first, I do want to say on the Kurt Signetti deal, we've talked a lot about him this weekend, and this shows the commitment Indiana has to football. Yep. And Penn State definitely was going to make a swing, and they didn't swing hard enough, apparently. As for Billy Napier and his future, this is a very critical weekend for him. It might not matter how it goes, to be frank. Billy Napier had a 1-3 start. I think the Hornets' nest there has been kicked up once again for the 2nd season in a row. Scott Strickland was able to kind of hold the boosters back last year. And DJ Lagway's push down the stretch gave the program enough confidence that Billy Napier could fix it going into this year. It hasn't really worked outside of a really nice moment against Texas. And even if Florida wins this game against Mississippi State like this weekend going into the bye, there's no guarantee Billy Napier survives that week. This has been a week for a very long time that people have circled as a time that makes sense to make a change. And even if Billy Napier gets a win on the Swamp on Saturday, it could still be his swan song. That's just the reality of his situation. It's the reality where Florida's at. And frankly, Penn State has kicked up the timeline for a lot of these schools in terms of their coaching searches. Because if you're not getting in now, you're going to be a little late.
Billy Napier's buyout right at about $20 million. By the way, who do you think would end up being the interim coach there? Because that staff's kind of interesting, right? I mean, I don't know who you'd name.
It'd either be, Ron Roberts is the only head coach with any experience on that staff, or the only coach with any experience on that staff. And that comes with some concerns. Maybe it's a situation where Napier's convinced to stay on the rest of the year. I don't know if that'll be the case. If not, to be frank, the season's not going anywhere for Florida at this point. Kind of take your lumps and you move on. But if you want my opinion, I don't really see if you know you're going to fire Billy Napier, I don't see the benefit of doing it. I don't really know if there's a reason to do it. You could just back channel people for a while. It's not like the guys can go in the portal, but we'll see what route they go on that one. But either way, Billy Napier's job is very much in danger, no matter what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, I just don't love, this isn't breaking news. I just feel like the way that this has been handled, not just this year, but the past 2 years, has really just been, I feel like, unbelievably bad. They have just not done a good job of communicating. They have not done a good job of being decisive. They've not done a good job of planning for the future. I feel like the way that these last 2 years have gone from an organizational perspective are beneath a program like Florida. I think that it puts a huge damper on the roster you can put together. It puts a huge damper on, I mean, obviously they're going to get whoever they can get next time. But like, again, they're stepping into a weird situation because of the way that Scott Strickland has managed it. I think that, when we talk all the time about the idea of alignment, like obviously there's been disconnect between Strickland wanting to keep Napier and the boosters potentially not. And now we're sitting here with everybody kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think that this is a situation that, yes, obviously Billy Napier has not won enough games, but the people above his head too, I think, have done a really poor job of managing. And we'll throw out too, of course, the school president resigned last year. They've been with an interim. They had a weird situation with the president who was supposed to come in. I don't think that helps matters to not have a true decisive figure on the academic level on campus. But like this is going to look back, not just because of what happened on the field, but also off the field, as a really, really big, I think, black eye on this program and what it's been in the 21st century.
We've also got,
like, obviously, I've heard the same speculation. There are plenty of people around the industry that think there's a real chance that Billy could be out on Sunday. I still have not heard anything definitive one way or another yet on my end. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it is going to happen. Obviously, it'd be something that I'm monitoring, just like I know you guys will be. But still, for whatever it's worth, to be clear, I've not heard anything definitive one way or another as of yet. And you do bring up a fair point, Brandon, in terms of something that could be a consideration. Is there a clear interim? Is there somebody who's a clear person that you trust to lead the way the rest of the way through the season? Could that impact the timeline with all of this in terms of making a move with Billy Napier? And you do have to remember, even if you as Scott Strickland and the administration, athletic department of Florida, even if you don't make a move right now, but you know what you're doing, you can still do some recon and behind the scenes work and prep for this, even if you haven't officially made that move right now. That obviously, even though it's not like the ideal way of doing this or the best business or however you want to put it, obviously be far from uncommon for an athletic department or an AD to begin the process of working on this, even while the current head coach is still in place.
Yeah.
There's a 0%. I agree with Matt, by the way. I'm just saying there's a 0% chance Scott Strickland does not already have a small list of candidates he's going to consider in this situation. Like,
my question is, though, is Lane Kiffin even on it?
I would be surprised if he's not, but that's more like me basing that off of the opinion of industry sources who I trust and are usually on point from information standpoint. That's where that's coming from on my end so far, more so than it is Scott Strickland or somebody who's involved in that process at Florida. So on my end, people around the industry do think Lane is going to be a factor there. But to be clear, that's coming from people outside of the athletic department at Florida. So take that with a grain of salt for right now.
I just wonder how much, Strickland is going to, have full control over this. Is he going to be able to go off and do a side room? I'm hiring a firm. I'm going to have like 3 guys around me to go make the hire. We're not going to have a committee or anything like that. I think that'll lead a lot into whether certain candidates might actually be considered.
Let's just make it easy.
What I'm saying.
You can bring in one of the hottest coaches at the G6 level right now, Dan Mullen. Get him back to Gainesville.
No, you could go back to Louisiana.
Jim McElwain is also available, by the way.
That's right. You could also go back to Louisiana and get another G6 coach. John Sunwell.
Well, I do think you're going to see, just like speaking to people in the industry about that job again, like this is industry speculation, but industry speculation is usually has a hint of truth to it. I don't know if I think the natural answer, if you're in Florida, like Alex Gulch is right there at South Florida, but I don't know if they're going to go. Like, you don't often see people repeat the same hire as they did last time. And the Alex Gulch, Billy Napier thing has a lot of.
They're
you're going to see Florida make an aggressive push for
the people around there I've talked to. Yeah, they're concerned about we just can't go get a G6 coach.
Yeah,
that's what
this will be. This will be one of those jobs that tips over a couple dominoes because they're going to hire a sitting people.
Yeah.
Two things. This in Penn State. So in terms of like not going the same route as the previous hire, Penn State, like people are bringing up Clark Lee as somebody who is deserving of consideration or could be a candidate for this or somebody that could be worth them looking at. As great of a job as Clark is doing at Vanderbilt right now, and as much as he may be deserving of, at the very least, a conversation for a job like Penn State, there is zero chance that Penn State goes the route again on back-to-back hires of hiring a head coach from Vanderbilt. And the same thing with Florida. There is zero chance, as highly as Scott Strickland and all may think of John Sumrall, Alex Golish, some different coaches at the G6 level, you just cannot go that route again in terms of your next head coach.
Okay, guys, off the hot seat chatter. I mean, gosh, goodness gracious, we've been talking about hot seat stuff for 35 minutes. It's insane how much this is like it's dominating the conversation across the country, not just with us. But another big game coming up is Tennessee at Alabama.
Brandon, they're playing football this weekend.
That's what I've heard. The sauces tell me that we are going to play football this Saturday. In fact, we've already had games this week. I don't know if people knew that. Tennessee at Alabama.
Heck of a win by FAU on Tuesday over Western Kentucky.
Yes.
I thought Western was going to run away with
FIU, not FAU.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say FIU.
UTEP picked up their first FBS win of the year in the battle of 1-5 versus 0-6. So
and Phil Longo's still winless.
Yeah, there were probably 75 people in that stadium last night. It is crazy.
Yeah. So Tennessee at Alabama. No one's on the hot seat here, but Josh Heupel, he's 4-7 against AP ranked teams when he's on the road. Alabama's dealing with some injury issues. You got Jan Miller, who suffered a concussion against Mizzou in that game. You had Ryan Williams, who didn't really play against Mizzou because he was dealing with some type of injury that limited him in practices, so they didn't get to play him all that much. And then, of course, you go into this a situation where Tennessee's offense is just absolutely rolling, averaging 48.2 points per game, but their defense is allowing 31.8 points per game. Alabama is just absolutely cruising along here. How do we feel about both teams, their health, and what kind of lies ahead for them going into the future and into this game?
Well, first of all, in terms of the injury part of it for Alabama, Jan Miller leaves the last game with a concussion, legitimately questionable right now, and I think we'll get a better feel on that one during the course of the next couple of days. Nothing definitive as of yet, but would obviously be a big loss if he wasn't able to go for Alabama. For Tennessee, in terms of the injury part of it, there was some concern coming out of their last game about their running back, Deshaun Bishop, who's done good things this year, receiver Braylon Staley. Fortunately for Tennessee, the key guys that did get banged up during the course of last game appear good to go for this one, which obviously when you're facing opponent of this magnitude with this kind of talent level, it's nice to be able to have your key guys available.
Does this seem like I know it wouldn't be technically mathematically wise, but does this seem more like a playoff elimination game for Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I think on our little show preview thing, we asked who has more pressure in this game, Tennessee or Alabama. And yeah, I think Tennessee has to win this game if it wants to make the playoff, but I think more pressure's on Alabama. Alabama would have a better chance of fighting their way out of that hole, but this is a Tennessee team that was always viewed as a team in transition. Yeah. Obviously, the expectations at Tennessee are always high, like Josh Heupel wants to win games, but this was, especially after the way the spring played out with Nico, a year of transition for Tennessee. This is an Alabama team that's talented enough to win a national championship, depending on how things break. And if you lose this game, there's zero margin for error the rest of the way for Alabama. So, that is the team I'm circling on Saturday. If this is a game Alabama has to win, especially when you consider some of the question marks with the Tennessee defense.
I do wonder, also another big game here coming up with LSU and Brian Kelly going to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, I think, deservedly favored against the LSU Tigers. You do have to wonder if LSU loses this game in Nashville, do we start having to have a conversation of Brian Kelly's seat? And the reason why I say that is because my goodness, the remaining games after that are so difficult. There you have the fourth toughest schedule remaining in the country based off of winning percentage. Their opponents after Vanderbilt have won 77.8% of their games so far this season. Brian Kelly's 5-9 at LSU against ranked teams. That defense has been carrying the way. And of course, there's been questions about Garrett Nussmeier's health and his upper body, his ribs, and they just haven't been scoring points and doing as well as they want. Nussmeier hasn't thrown for over 300 yards all season. He had 8 of those games last year. So I asked this, guys, if LSU goes into Nashville and loses against Vandy, and considering everything that's still on the schedule there, does this put Brian Kelly in a situation where we might be discussing his future in Baton Rouge?
It's a fair question, but I'll say this. I don't know what the point spread is on this game.
2.5.
This is a game where LSU is the clearly more talented team. And that's not to take anything away from Vanderbilt, but LSU is the more talented team here. And I will say from injury perspective, so LSU last week was without their top receiver. I think he's leading the team in receiving, or at least was heading into last week, Aaron Anderson. He's set to be back this week. So adds or puts back in a key component of that offense back into the lineup for them. Important going into a game like this. And I will say, in terms of the remaining schedule, Texas A&M, that they have the week after that. Texas A&M obviously ranked in the top 4 right now, but Texas A&M did just lose one of their best overall players in running back Le'Veon Moss for an extended period of time. They're going to be without him in that game against LSU. So that's going to be a toss-up game. Both teams are playoff caliber teams in terms of their rosters and talent level, but a winnable game for LSU. Alabama, toss-up game. Could see that going either way. And then after that, you have Arkansas, a team that LSU is going to be favored against. Western Kentucky, LSU should win that game. And then Oklahoma, ranked 14 right now, but Oklahoma is a team that, as you guys have maybe gotten from people around the industry also, there are some people that feel like Oklahoma may be poised for a little bit of fall off during the course of second half of the year. So I do still see a window here that, even though the question was about like if a loss here could put Brian Kelly on the hot seat or increase the pressure on him, I still see a window for them here to make a run, like not only to avoid being on the hot seat, but potentially to still be in the playoff conversation. Just a long-winded way of getting to that.
Okay. We're going to get into OU here in a moment in the Brent Venables situation. I think they go to South Carolina.
I will say, I do think there's going to be some pressure on Joe Sloan a little bit if the offense doesn't perform on Saturday. Some of that is the offensive line. Some of that is Garrett Nussmeier, who has been up and down this year, but they invested a lot in that offense, and it just hasn't met expectations, I would say, so far this year. So I think LSU does win that game, and I think the offense has a good day against a Vanderbilt secondary that's had its down moments at times. But if that doesn't happen, I think you start to look at that side of the ball if you're LSU.
We're going to take a look at a few more games here in the pressure index, but first we're going to take a break here on the College Football Insiders. We'll be right back.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
Welcome back to College Football Insiders. I am Brendan Marcello, joined right now by Chris Hummer and Matt Zenitz. We're continuing on here with our pressure index for Week 8. Big time game, classic matchup. USC at Notre Dame. No one really on the hot seat, of course, here, but playoff implications. We all know that Notre Dame's got to be pretty much perfect the rest of the way after starting the season 0-2, and they have been. They've won 4 straight, and their offense and defense have both come to life. But don't count out USC, of course. USC has been off to a really great start here. They're coming off a win against Michigan last week. I think what's really, really interesting about USC, despite playing last week without 2 of their starting offensive linemen, and then, of course, all the injuries they dealt with at running back, they have dominated the middle 8. The last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, they are having a 45-point differential there in scoring in the middle 8 this season. That's the second best in all of the country. And then you've got a Notre Dame team here that has been averaging 44 points during this 4-game winning streak. And as I mentioned, the defense seemingly has gotten better. So playoff implications potentially for this game. But Matt, as I just mentioned, USC and for that matter, Notre Dame, both dealing with some injuries going into this one, some big ones.
One of the key things to keep an eye on during the course of this game. So Chris and I reported going back to, what was it, Sunday? Lost track of my days of the week at this point. But going back to, I think, Sunday, about Wayman Jordan, USC standout running back, suffering a high ankle sprain that's going to keep him out for at least the next month, probably somewhere in the 4 to 6 week range. And unfortunately for USC, in addition to that, lost its backup running back, Eli Sanders, to a torn ACL during the course of the game last week also, which puts the Trojans in position now where they're going to be relying on a walk-on running back, King Miller, to be their RB1 heading into this game against Notre Dame and for the foreseeable future. Fortunately for them, King Miller didn't look like the typical walk-on last week, going out and running for 150 yards against Michigan, but still that running back situation for USC worth monitoring to go along with, like Brandon mentioned, the offensive line part of it for them also, specifically one that keeping an eye on my end, and have not heard anything final or definitive on as of yet in terms of the status of left tackle Elijah Page, who's been out for the last couple games now that he's missed. It would be important, or it would be nice for USC, especially considering the running back injuries, to be able to get him back.
Notre Dame also lost their center, Ashton Craig. He's out for the season after injuring his knee this past weekend against NC State in that blowout victory for the Irish. This will be a fascinating game to watch. As we mentioned, Notre Dame, of course, by all measures, seemingly needing to win every single game, just like they kind of faced after last season when they had an early season loss against Northern Illinois. They can't afford another loss here going down the stretch. And technically, but the analytics, I guess, show that this game against USC is their toughest game remaining on the schedule. So you get over the hump here, Notre Dame's going to be favored in every matchup along the way, and as a result, favored to get into the college football playoff. But again, don't forget USC. They only have one loss. That offense has come to life, even with some of those injuries. The defense has been off and on, but they seem to be good at times. I was kind of impressed with them, honestly, a little bit against Michigan, and we'll see where both programs go. I think this one's kind of the tone setter for both teams on whether they're just good or really, really good. Okay, Oklahoma at South Carolina. We were talking about Brent Venables earlier, some more chatter around him because of just how difficult the schedule is the rest of the way. Coming off this loss against Texas, where we had quarterback John Napier return to the field only 17 days following his surgery to repair a broken bone in his hand. Now they go to South Carolina, where, listen, the Gamecocks just haven't been great this year. They have the fourth worst offense in all of Power Conference football, averaging only 310 yards per game. Lenore Sellers has been playing and running for his life behind a leaky offensive line all year. South Carolina, let's see here. I saw this. They fired their offensive line coach, of course, Lonnie Teasley, because, in part, they're allowing a pressure rate of 43.1% on dropbacks by Lenore Sellers. That's insane. But back to Brent Venables. This is why a game like this is so important. They should win this game, right? You can't afford a loss here because this is the remaining schedule, guys. Every single team currently is ranked no lower than number 16. So their last 5 games are number 5 after this one. Number 5, Ole Miss, at number 11, Tennessee, at number 6, Alabama, number 16, Mizzou, and then number 10, LSU. Brent Venables, right now, he's 3-7 in the SEC since OU joined the league last year. Must-win game for Brent Venables on the road in Columbia?
I wouldn't say must-win yet, but you referenced the schedule, and not exactly an easy road the rest of the way. So this is a deal where Brent Venables was on the hot seat to a certain degree entering the year. They did start the season 5-0, and it may sound crazy to a certain degree, considering this is still a team that's 5-1.
Yeah.
But considering what that schedule is the rest of the way, that there is a scenario here where this could be a borderline 500 team, a 7-5. If things go poorly, 6-6 type football team. Not saying they couldn't be better than 6-6 or 7-5, but you could see a scenario where, like, worst case scenario could play out like that. It's important to take advantage of the one unranked opponent, one non-top 16 ranked opponent that you have remaining on your schedule. Even though I will be clear, like Brandon, you throw out should win this game. South Carolina is far from like some incapable team. They do have talent there. It is on the road in Columbia, so this is far from some cakewalk type game for Oklahoma at the same time. Even though I will note, if they do lose this one heading into that final stretch, does not bode well for Oklahoma and Brent Venables.
No, this is a game Oklahoma should win. South Carolina has done very little well this season, outside of Lenore Sellers creating plays on his own out of structure. If Oklahoma doesn't win this game, it's going to be a really rough run the rest of the season for them. Like this is a game Oklahoma has to win.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the Sooners allowing a pressure rate of 43.1% on dropbacks. OU, by the way, that defense top
The
three.
Gamecocks, right, Brandon?
Yeah, the Gamecocks, excuse me. And OU, of course, in top 3 in a lot of categories defensively. More importantly, they're number 1 in pressure rate, 48.4% of dropbacks, going against the third worst protection rate in college football. Doesn't set up well on paper for Carolina, which to me makes it even all the more important that the Sooners need to show something. Okay, Mizzou ranked still, coming off a close loss at home to Alabama. They go to the plains of Auburn, where Hugh Freeze is not feeling the vibes right now. Seemingly everywhere they turn, they're not getting good penalty flag calls. They're upset with that. Their offense can't do a darn thing, it seems like. They go to sleep in the second half of games. Do you think his car is able to start, Brandon? I think he hasn't really been able to start that car since week 1 when they went to Baylor, in my opinion. They have not looked good at all.
Yeah, I'm assuming
that's a bad thing when your AD says compares you to a car that doesn't start.
Yeah. John Cohen, Auburn's athletics director, told AL.com this week, quote, "I don't know if I'm going to walk outside, my car is going to start or not. I think it is. I have an expectation it will, but if my car doesn't start enough, then I'll evaluate that and make decisions about my car." He's talking about whether Hugh Freeze will be the head coach at Auburn next year. That's not even a vote of confidence. That's a vote of, if he keeps losing, I'm going to fire his ass. That's what that sounds like to me. I mean, goodness gracious. And I think it's gotten to that point at Auburn. It's only his 3rd year, but they are talented as heck. They got talent all across the field. The offensive line's been bad. Jackson Arnold has been bad. Ball just coming out weird out of his hand at times. Just nothing seems to be going right there. And then this past week, you had their running back, Demario Alston, leaving or getting kicked off the team, some type of disagreement there where Demario Alston, a team captain at running back, no longer on the team. You got Hugh Freeze hitting on that in a press conference during the week and then calling reporters afterward to clarify his comments further so that doesn't sound like that they're crapping on Demario Alston. It's never quiet on the plains and there's never a shortage of drama. They can't get out of their own way. So I know it's a ranked opponent, Matt and Chris, but this is a huge, huge game for Auburn and Hugh Freeze, in my opinion.
I'll say this, and I'm going to deflect it or throw it back to you, Brandon, because I don't think there's anybody better to talk about Auburn than you with this. But I still see a path here for Auburn to 7 wins. I think that's realistic. Mm-hmm. I believe that if they get to 7, that Hugh has a real chance of keeping his job. I could see that maybe playing out, even getting to 500 and 6-6, even though I feel less confident at that point. But I do think 7 puts him in position where it's realistic to keep his job. What are your thoughts on that coming out of the comments that John Cohen made, just your overall feel on it? Do you agree with me on that 7 wins could be enough for him to be safe there and get another year?
Style points mean so much in the state of Alabama. It depends on who those wins are against, right? And I'm looking at the rest of
they should have beaten Georgia last week, or they were right there, if not for some questionable officiating. Right. Let's not forget that, even though it did turn into a loss.
Yeah, but same thing with OU, right? They should have been in that game, but they had penalties, and there was some weird stuff there. And the SEC office came back and said, hey, we should have thrown a flag, and that touchdown shouldn't have counted for OU in a 7-point game. So the rest of their schedule after Mizzou this week, number 16 Mizzou goes to Jordan-Hare. They go to Arkansas. They host Kentucky. They go to Vanderbilt. Hugh Freeze, by the way, 0-3 against Diego Pavia in his career as a head coach at Auburn and at Liberty. Mercer, and then Alabama. So they're at 3 wins right now. You need 4 wins out of that. So I would say Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. And if you're going to get a 4th win out of there, it'll be a Mercer. Does that look good to the fans, the boosters? Does that give you hope for the future? You're still losing to Missouri. You're still losing to Bama. You lost to, you're both rivals once again.
Factoring in what we just threw out, just how easily those 2 games could have turned out differently. I feel like that has to be taken into account to a certain degree. Factoring that in, I'm just telling you, I see a path to him being there for another year and next year being a make or break year. I'm not saying 100% or making some sort of like declaration he's 100% going to be back.
Do they make him go get a high tier quarterback?
I would assume that they'd be pushing for upgrade at quarterback position, just considering it hasn't gone like they were hoping for it to go with Jackson.
Because he's swung and missed twice on transfers, right? Peyton Thorne and now Jackson Arnold.
And alleviate some of that next year. We'll see if that's the case. I think the reviews on him have been up and down, but he will be going into his 2nd year next year. And if you're Auburn, based on how they went out and aggressively got Deuce Knight, you have to hope he's ready to play.
Yeah. Auburn is 2-8 in 1-score games under Hugh Freeze, 14-17 overall. And the stat that just, another stat for you, 1-11 in ranked games against ranked teams. But the one that stood out to me, that I had folks on Twitter pointing out to me, he's 5-14 in the conference, which is the same record as Trent Dilfer, who was just fired at UAB. You know, everybody loves to make comparisons in that state.
Wow. Slightly different conferences, I will say, but
yeah. But your competition
is not gotten caught on camera taking pictures or whatever on the sideline. It's one thing he at least has going for him.
He's been caught on the links a couple times, I will say.
That's true.
But at least he hasn't been doing that on the sideline. It would be worse.
Yeah.
It'd be weird to be practicing your golf swing on the sideline. I do agree.
Okay. Has he golfed at all this season? Has anybody gone back to look at numbers on that website?
Have you been out there with him, Chris? Has Trey been out there with him?
Trey has probably definitely been on the links with Hugh Freeze. I can't say I've had the pleasure.
All right. Injuries and intel. What are we hearing out there on the landscape? We've hit on quite a few for some big games this week, but we're starting to hear some murmurs going on at Clemson with their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, in this week's game.
Yeah, status up in there. And if he can't start, Chris Vizina, former top 75 overall recruit, would get the start for them, but haven't heard a final decision on that one yet, even though his status clearly in question heading into that game. As far as other quarterbacks, Arizona State set to get Sam Leavitt back this week against Texas Tech. They lost with Jeff Sims starting last week, but Sam has practiced throughout the course of the week and barring some sort of unforeseen setback, should be able to go against Texas Tech. And then Michigan State heads into game against the new $11.6 million man, Kurt Cignetti. They are in line to have their starting quarterback available. So Aiden Childs has been classified as questionable throughout the course of the week after getting hurt against UCLA last weekend. But based on some calls that it took me away from certain points of the show. Those were actually a couple that was on, but heard that he's expected to be able to play in that game against against Indiana. Sorry, got choked.
Yeah. And speaking of which, that Texas Tech Arizona State game, quarterback Baron Morton for Texas Tech, questionable going into that, but of course, backup Will Heyman has been fantastic this year. We saw him go in against Utah and just absolutely wipe the floor with them there in Salt Lake City. But that's a big Big 12 match between the Big 12 favorites.
It was back to Sunday with Barron. So yeah. I know it's been called day to day during the course of the week, but I ought to say I had a source say on Sunday that they would bet their house on Barron, especially with as tough as he is, ultimately being able to go and being out there come that game.
How big is this person's house? How big is the person's house? Pretty big?
Solid money at this point.
Cool.
House probably looks like Chris Hummer's.
Yeah.
Wow. Not making good enough money at that point, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Hummer's got like 20 dogs. He's got like just a huge estate.
Just got one very spirited dog on a very reasonably sized pallet of land in Austin, Texas. I tell you what, you don't get a lot of land out here for a lot of money. I'll tell you that.
Okay. All right, let's go inside the insiders. I don't know if anybody's got anything to talk about here. I can mention something real quick, but what are we working on this week and really exciting us going the future?
I got a story tomorrow about college football parity. I know people probably feel like there's been a season of parity this year, but I've got a story tomorrow kind of diving into the numbers that support that. And y'all want to hear a fun stat?
Yes.
The top 10 teams this year actually have a worse win percentage through 7 weeks than top 10 teams in 2007 did. In 2007, one of the craziest seasons in college football history.
That's awesome.
I talked to a lot of people, so I'm excited for it.
That's awesome. What have you been working on, Shahan?
Track and monitor some of injury stuff that obviously we've talked about already, and there's some other situations to go along with that, including like Michigan has big game against Washington on Saturday coming off their loss this past weekend. Justice Haynes' status has been up in the air during the course of the week. He's been deemed as questionable. So there are some other ones even beyond the situations that we've talked about that monitoring to go along with. So there's some NFL stuff that you guys would care less about that been working on today.
CD Lamb playing this week. I do care about that.
Yeah, what about my fantasy team, Matt? How's my fantasy team going to do?
No, forget my fantasy team. What about my
I'm just disappointed in Chris Hummer putting out CD Lamb news that had a couple of weeks ago. Like, Chris is more plugged in the NFL space than people realize, or Chris even likes to give himself credit for. Like to see Chris put some of this stuff out there to raise the level of awareness when it comes to that.
I would just like to see CD Lamb play on Saturday, but on Sunday it's fine. But Sean, what are you working on?
Yeah, I'm a Bears fan. I'm not really sure what it looks like to care about whether your team wins or not. So I did a story earlier this week on Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. I got to talk to a lot of people from his hometown, from his first stop at Ferris State. It was a really cool opportunity. Great group of people. Got to talk to a lot of people out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That was pretty fun. So make sure and check that story out. I had a lot of fun writing it, and I think you'll enjoy it. And also, I will say I will be away from college football this weekend. My grandmother, Shireen De Silva, passed this weekend, so we'll be going to spend some time with the family out there. So grateful to this job that it gives me opportunities like that and lets me get away when it's time to get away.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Sean. Yeah. Now I don't want to say what I'm doing. So
go for it, man. Go for it. Don't worry, we're good. We're good out here. We're good.
No, I will say with Trinidad Chambliss, for what it's worth, and Shahan did a good job with that story. It was interesting with this week that Lane still declined to just outright name starter at quarterback, and I'll just say Trinidad is set to start as expected to start heading into this game, so that should be no surprise whatsoever to people. But it is interesting just that Lane was playing some of the games that was heading into the week, and the way that was presenting things was presenting in a way where it seemed like there was a chance that maybe it could be Austin Simmons instead of Trinidad. But that was one where we had an update going back a couple of days ago, back at a point where it was becoming increasingly clear, even more so that Trinidad was going to be the guy, was getting 95+% of the first team reps at that point, and then have continued here during the course of the last couple of days that he is in fact expected to start, which again should come as no surprise to anybody.
I've just tuned out Lane Kiffin these days. I really have. I mean, if he says something interesting, I'll see it as a meme or something on Twitter. I whatever. Okay. Great coach, amazing coach. I love him to coach my alma mater, but man, he can be just absolute frustration listening to him at press conferences. He thinks he's the funniest man in the room. Okay. Yeah, I'm working on a
he does like the Shane Gillis like that at you basically every 3 minutes.
And he's got the Nick Saban mannerisms he's copied, and it's just whatever. He's a great coach, whatever. Better than me, better than all of us.
I hope.
I've won multiple national championships in my dynasty in NCAA 26. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I'll take credit where it's due.
I still haven't even played CFB 26. I never even bought it. I'm shocked I haven't.
Hey, by the way, speaking of your alma mater, Brandon, I have seen the last couple of days, baseball-wise, that apparently Albert Pujols is a candidate for some Major League Baseball head coaching jobs. I don't know if that came out of nowhere for people, but it got me thinking, like, man, you might as well get to Arkansas just to hire like Darren McFadden, just make him head coach. Get him and Felix Jones in there together. That they could be co-head coaches.
Yeah,
Peyton Ellis can come back and be a.
It would be awesome. Yeah,
conditioning coach.
I've always said that you should learn a lot from UAB hiring a coach with essentially no college experience who's just mostly famous. I think that usually works out really well.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. I'm on assignment this week. It's a secret project. You'll see more next week. Quick picks. A lot of big games. I can't remember what I picked, so I got to pull up my picks.
Are we doing? I don't do the Thursday show usually. Are we doing ATS or just straight up?
We're just doing
just straight up, dude. And
also, I never corroborate to make sure that my picks are the same on the show and the expert picks. I do not care. I talk something different anytime I'm on here.
And
by the way, I appreciate that from great producer Aaron. I didn't even realize I did that. They refer to baseball managers as head coaches. I didn't realize.
It's okay. Producer Aaron earlier didn't know what Fallout Boy was, so we have all moments.
We're not starting that discussion. I do have to be somewhere at the top of the hour. We're not starting that.
I would like to see football coaches wear football pads.
Yes,
correct. On the sideline like baseball.
Either football pads, or I need to see them back in the PJ Fleck tie and suit and all that sort of stuff. One of the two. We're caught in the middle right now.
And bring cigarettes back. No, okay. All right.
And you said, going back to the Hugh Freeze thing, you want to see head coaches practicing their golf swing on the sideline for a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see, I think that you misheard. I want to see Hugh Freeze only practicing his golf swing. I don't want him on the sideline.
I will have I'm clipping bring cigarettes back from Brandon. I'm just using that whenever I want in the future. So
hey, Indiana's bringing cigs back.
Ooh.
That is true.
Look at that.
Six would be elite with a heater on his post-game press conference. I won't lie, but
yeah.
It works smooth there, Brandon. Kudos on that.
Yes, I've been holding on to that one close to my heart for a long time. Okay, quick picks. Louisville at number 2, Miami, a Friday night game there at Miami Gardens. What you got, Chris Hummer? 15 seconds or less. Go.
Miami.
Perfect.
The team 2 hours away from where I live, Miami.
Yeah, Louisville's defense has, I think, been pretty impressive this year, but not that impressive. Give me Miami.
Yeah, I'm going Miami as well, but I got Louisville covering the spread. That's 13.5. I like that Louisville defense, as you mentioned. Okay, we also have number 10 LSU at number 17 Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, the slight favorite, 2.5 points.
I got LSU. I picked them as my preseason SEC title pick. Don't feel great about it. I'm going to go down with the ship if I need to. Tigers win.
I'll second that with LSU. More talented team.
Yeah, I picked them to win the national championship, and I yeeted them off of my college football playoff picks this week. But I do think that this is a bounce-back game for them, and they do pull off a victory.
Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt get it done. They beat LSU, and they go party on Broadway.
With some cigs.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's more likely, actually. Yeah.
With some cigs and Theo Vaughn.
I just want to see, how we had Urban Meyer, the sad eating pizza, like a coach after losing to Vanderbilt there eating hot wings, sadly. Okay. That's just me. Number 14, Oklahoma at South Carolina. What we got?
Oklahoma. We talked about it earlier. South Carolina's offensive line is a mess. Oklahoma's best defensive front in college football in terms of creating pressure. Sooners win.
Go Oklahoma.
It better be Oklahoma, because if they can't win this game, they are going to probably lose out. And I don't think they're going to lose out. So give me Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going Sooners as well. Easy win. Number 4, Texas A&M at Arkansas.
Texas A&M, but I will say this feels very trappy.
Ooh.
I'll second that. And you guys already know my thoughts on Taylor Green and just the talent that he has at quarterback position for Arkansas. I could see Arkansas being competitive in this game, even though the safe bet is A&M, obviously.
A&M's going to go down by let's call it 13, and then they're going to storm back because that defense can't stop anybody. But it's going to be very ugly, and it's going to make Aggies feel very bad. I kind of wish this one was at Jerry World because we need some of that energy, like the Jerry World weirdo energy.
Yeah. Chance of strong storms moving through Saturday morning here in Fayetteville. So keep an eye on that. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, A&M's ranked number 4 in the polls this year. That's the highest they've been in 30 years. I think Arkansas keeps this close, but I just don't think they've got the defense to be able to hold on and do something like that. And I've still got A&M covering the 7.5 point spread. So I've got A&M pulling away. Actually, I think this will be back and forth. Then they pull away in the second half.
Would be a big win for Bobby if he can find a way to pull it off, because like we've talked about on here before, Bobby does have a legitimate chance to get that job on a permanent basis. If he can win, this would be a big one for him to win.
He's 3-0 against the Aggies. Number 5, Ole Miss at number 9, Georgia.
Georgia, but I like Ole Miss to cover. 7.5 feels like a lot of points for a Georgia team that struggles to get out of the gates most weeks.
I'll take the person whose press conferences Brandon was critical of earlier in the show. Sir Lane.
This is an interesting one. I think that Georgia's defense has some legitimate problems. I think their offense is inconsistent. But Ole Miss as a program is inconsistent. But I think that they know what kind of opportunity this is. Give me Trinidad Chambliss and the boys to get it done. And after the game, everybody celebrates by reading my feature after the game.
Georgia's defensive line has only 6 tackles for loss all season. That's the second worst ever under Kirby Smart, at least at this rate going toward the future. Their linebackers been fine, but that defensive line just isn't getting it done by themselves in one-on-one battles. Having said all that, Ole Miss is on the road. I don't like those circumstances. Georgia wins. Ole Miss covers.
Well, whose defense are you taking? Georgia's or Grand Valley State's as tougher?
Georgia.
Okay.
They're not as. What do you think? What do you think, Hummer?
I mean, Grand Valley State's pretty mid on defense too, I've heard.
Man, I got some people think I was disrespecting the GLIAC with the way that I frame my tweets, and I would never, ever disrespect the GLIAC. Please put that on my gravestone.
Is that like MEAC?
I'm not
You're disrespecting them. You're disrespecting them.
I'd be lying if I could tell you. Like, I don't know if Grand Valley State has a good defense or not.
I don't either. And I just made a joke about a movie called Ernest Scared Stupid that no one got. Okay, number 7, Texas Tech.
No idea what's going on.
This shows off the road. Number 7, Texas Tech at Arizona State.
Texas Tech wins.
Texas Tech blowout.
Texas Tech wins by double digits. Just continues to cruise to Arlington. They're going to be in the top 5 here in the next couple of weeks.
They should already be in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous.
They'll get there though. Number 11 Tennessee at number 6 Alabama.
Alabama wins. I think Tennessee has a lot of questions defensively that Alabama can expose in a way few teams have, and they're better defensively than most teams that Tennessee's faced this year.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it. Obviously, some injuries in the secondary for Tennessee. They're still trying to develop some pieces. This is the worst team that you can possibly have secondary injuries against. So give me Alabama.
Yeah, I've watched Alabama just once in person and at Mizzou. They're getting that clutch gene back. They still stub their toes at times, but they converted 2 big 4th downs on their final drive to kind of ice the game away on the road. Ty Simpson's a legit Heisman kind of contender. I wouldn't say he's a favorite. I know some are starting to say that. I wouldn't, but they've got so many pieces, and their defensive line, I think, is just monstrous. It's one of the better ones I've watched in person this year, including Miami, from what I've seen. So Bama doesn't just win. They cover the 8.5 point spread. Number 20 USC at number 13 Notre Dame. 9.5 point spread in favor of Notre Dame, by the way.
Notre Dame wins. I think that defense has only given up 27 points over the last 3 weeks. USC covers.
Yeah, they've improved a lot, like you said, over the course of the season. USC is a little tougher than I expected. I do think that some of their run game stuff with the injuries that they've had might start to catch up with them against a team like Notre Dame. So give me Notre Dame by very little.
I think Marcus Freeman and co have done a fantastic job these last 4 games since starting off that 0-2 start. The defense looks so much better. I think this is a great start for them to kind of getting back on that national picture. They go, oh, They just beat USC by double digits. This is their toughest game remaining. They're going to be in the playoff. So yes, give me Notre Dame. Number 16, Missouri at Auburn.
This is a game Auburn should win. They're at home. They're due, but I trust Missouri more. I'll go with Missouri. Although I will say Auburn's run defense is one of the best in the country, and that is a potential problem for Missouri. But I just trust the Tigers. I trust the Tigers of Columbia more in this situation than I do the ones in the Plains.
Yeah, Auburn just finds ways to lose games. Yeah. And I think that Missouri is a better football team right now. I think they have more playmakers. And while, like you said, the run defense can present some problems, I don't think they've faced a player like Ahmad Hardy to this point. So I think Missouri pulls away.
This is a coin flip to me, but I'm right with Shahan. Like, Auburn just finds ways to just choke away situations. They've done it every year under Hugh Freeze. They've done it nearly in every game. I mean, I kept waiting in week 1 against Baylor for them to find a way to lose their double-digit lead, and they didn't do it. But I think Mizzou is reeling a little bit. I also think they're quite a bit banged up going into this after the Bama game, after watching them. That was a hard-hitting game. A lot of guys were falling down during that game, and not because of cramps. But Auburn finds ways. The point spread's only 1.5. I think Mizzou wins, and of course they'll cover. But it might still be a 1-touchdown game. Okay, this is the Sickos Bowl of the week to me. North Carolina at Cal. We talked ad nauseum about Bill Belichick, the just absolute disaster that is going on there at Chapel Hill, and apparently there might be more things coming out in the next couple of days from other podcasts. But who we got here? UNC at Cal, all the way across the country for the Tar Heels.
I've watched North Carolina play football this year. I'll take Cal.
Yeah, I think that, Bill Belichick back against the wall, everybody counting him out, lots of haters circling the facility. I think that at the end of this game, he's going to stand up at the press conference and say, the haters were right. Shout out to the haters. So Cal wins by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I got Cal in this one, and the heat keeps ratcheting up, and what a disaster in Chapel Hill. Okay. Well, that's all we got.
One more that I don't think we included. Yeah. Number 23 Utah at number 15 BYU. That one I think.
Oh, goodness gracious. How did I forget the Holy War?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
You're going to get smited.
Well, listen, I get smited every day.
I think Utah does the smiting, by the way. I like the Utes.
Yeah, usually I wouldn't try to shove this one in, but I think this is a huge game, actually. I think this is number 2 versus number 3 in the Big 12 behind Texas Tech. I think the winner of this game is going to be in Arlington playing against Texas Tech. Both these teams, by the way, I think by the end of the year will have a loss to Texas Tech as well. But, if you're 11-2 with 2 losses to Tech, I think you're in decent shape. Huge game. Really excited for this one. I think that BYU's receivers end up being the difference in this game. I think that you get an explosive or 2 from their receiving game. I think that they have more ability than people realize to put up points in a hurry. It's a close game. It's an ugly game. It's a fun game. Give me BYU.
Yeah. If you guys stayed up late Saturday night and watched BYU at Arizona, BYU coming back from a double-digit deficit in the final minutes at Arizona and then pulling it out in overtime, it was fantastic. It was so much fun to watch. I can't believe I forgot this game. I got ranked number 4 in my most interesting games of the week, but I got Utah, more physical. But this atmosphere, it's going to be great. This is like one of those games I've never been to that I really want to go to.
I really wanted to make it out this weekend, but just couldn't make it happen. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be an awesome atmosphere, but I got Utah pulling it out in a very close game. I think it'll be back and forth through 4 quarters. Okay. That's all we've got. Did anybody else get fired while we were on the air? That seems to be happening every time we get on air. In fact, we will be back Sunday live on YouTube. We don't know what time yet because we're not going to do the usual 11:30 Eastern or 11 Eastern, I should say, because people start getting fired like either during the show or right after the show. So tentatively set your bat watches to, I think it was 3:30 Eastern or 3 Eastern. 3 Eastern, I think is what we set. But if someone gets fired before 3 Eastern on Sunday, we'll jump on and do an emergency podcast. So just keep your eyes tuned there. So go to YouTube Go to CBS Sports College Football. And if you're watching us now, make sure to hit that. Is it the bell still there? Hit that bell, get notifications turned on so you know when we go live at 3 Eastern time Sunday, or maybe earlier if there's a firing Sunday. Several coaches on the hot seat coaching for their livelihood this Saturday. So I'm Brendan Marcello for Chris Hummer, Shahan Jayaraja, and Matt Zenitz. This has been the College Football Insiders. We will see you Sunday